I'm Leilani Farha, the UN Special Rapporteur on the right to housing. I'm so sorry I'm unable to be with you in Vancouver for the KDocs Film Festival, but I'm here in gorgeous New Zealand, Wellington, New Zealand, on my last official visit. I wanted to provide you with a few words before you watch the film Push, which is, as you probably know, about this phenomenon called financialisation, the financialisation of housing. I thought it would be useful before you see the film to just describe the phenomenon a little bit and how it is manifesting in Canada in particular, because the film is, of course, global in scope. It covers cities, it does include Toronto, but it covers other cities like Santiago, Chile, and Valparaiso, Chile, and Seoul, South Korea, among others. So I thought it would be useful to understand this phenomenon in the Canadian context. So what are we talking about when we talk about the financialization of housing? I want to differentiate it from housing finance. Housing finance, mortgages that attach to houses, for example, or getting a mortgage in order to afford a home, is housing finance, and that's not financialization. When we use the term financialization, we mean when sort of uber amounts of capital are invested in housing as an asset class, where money is put into housing as a way to grow capital, as a place to park capital, or as a place to leverage capital. And we're talking often about huge amounts of money. And this can all be dated really since the global financial crisis, where big private equity firms and other big financial actors, asset management firms, really kind of invaded the housing landscape and started to snatch up, purchase cheap debt in the form of foreclosed mortgages in single-family dwellings, as well as, and more recently, multi-family dwellings, in particular, apartment buildings, in areas that the financial actors deem to be undervalued, apartment buildings or neighborhoods. And they deem them to be undervalued on the basis that they know, through their algorithms, etc., that they could increase the rents and actually generate more income off of the property or leverage more capital off of the property. The venture here, the whole business model, is based on the idea of getting a good return on investment and ensuring that investors are satisfied with their investors. What's happened is really unprecedented. Big private equity firms like Blackstone, and there are others, asset management firms like Acelius is a big one out of Sweden, for example. Timber Creek is a big one operating in Canada. These asset management firms are buying up not just one or two units, they're buying up thousands of units in one full swoop, in one transaction. And what they're doing often is sort of running a business model that goes like this: buy it, fix it, sell it. Or it has different iterations. It's buy it, do some cosmetic upgrades to the units, increase the rents, and then what happens is, of course, tenants that are living there can no longer afford the rents and either fall into arrears and get evicted, or they self-evict because they know they can't afford the rent any longer. I've seen this happen in Canada an awful lot, and people often say to me, well, don't you have rent controls or rent caps in Canada? And of course we do in different jurisdictions across the country. But there are ways around those rent guidelines, for example, and these actors are really using that to their benefit. What they'll do is they'll do some unnecessary upgrades to a building, and then they'll apply for what are often called above guideline increases to rents. And they're very successful in doing so, and rents are therefore escalating. That is one manifestation of the financialization of housing, and rest assured it is happening in Vancouver. Just before shooting this video, I decided to just do a quick Google search to see see what the actors are up to in Vancouver. There's a company called Starlight, famous for having bought, I think, 6 apartment buildings last summer in Toronto. Well, lo and behold, in December, Starlight, that has an institutional partnership with Blackstone, bought 2 buildings in Vancouver just last December. I did a run through, and Starlight is in also in Burnaby and also in Victoria, and other places in BC. And so if I were you and I'm living in BC, I would be keeping my eye on Starlight. As I said, they are an institutional partner with Blackstone, and they too use this business model. I've talked to tenants in Toronto who are experiencing this with Starlight. They're quite aggressive in doing these unnecessary upgrades and really, trying to get these above guideline increases to rents. Another way that financialization is playing out is that asset management firms are often actually completely razing or, demolishing entire neighborhoods where low-income people are living, and then building new luxury high-end units and not allowing communities to move back into the communities they were once living in. This happened in Ottawa. I think some of you will know Timber Creek Communities. Timber Creek, an asset management firm, owned a community, literally owned an entire community called Herongate, last spring, in the fall of 2019, they basically evicted 100 households. Approximately 500 people were rendered homeless or almost homeless through huge amount of advocacy. Tenants were able to find alternate accommodation, but they have not been promised to be able to move back to their community. It was completely disruptive to this community. It was a community made up of racialized people from a variety of countries, including Somalia and Sudan and parts of Africa. Timber Creek was saying, well, we gave them the appropriate amount of notice. All of this is contrary to international human rights law and the right to housing, and is hugely problematic. Forced eviction is a violation of the right to housing, and evictions into homelessness is a violation of the right to housing. Just before you watch Push, I do want to make a comment about what's happening in Wet'suwet'en. I'm deeply sorry that I'm not in Canada and able to address the situation on the ground. But what's happening and what's unfolding there is kind of more of the same. It is about the financialization of land, and it is absolutely contrary to international human rights standards to be forcing people off of their lands. It's very, very much out of step with the government's newly minted position that housing is a fundamental human right and that should guide housing policy. I just want to, of course, give a shout out to the advocates who are defending Wet'suwet'en and know that I stand in solidarity. And now it's time to watch Push. I want you to sit back, relax, and enjoy the film. I hope it makes you laugh. It may make you cry, and it will definitely make you think. Thanks a lot.
Two quick questions. One would be rent to own, a question on the topic of rent to own, and the other would be since there are a lot of empty properties and we're talking about investment, are there any initiatives to match single parents and families that is the practice that pairs up these foreign investment properties with, let's say, low-income families or single-parent homes or something along that on a short-term basis, if it's for a year until the property is flipped, to at least help with, it's not long-term, but at least it's short-term housing. So, two quick things. Do you know of rent-to-own initiatives? Are there more? Is there a movement for that? And is there some kind of agency that helps pair foreign investment properties? And is there a movement house or place people there. I can start. I don't know about any rent-to-own. I think the problem with rent-to-own is you probably would need too much money to rent. I'm mostly interested in people that are making under about $50K, and if you're a lower income, which is about half of renters in Vancouver, and 53% of people in Vancouver are renters now. So rent-to-own is pretty difficult because the rent would have to be so high. In terms of the vacant places, I think the vacancy tax is helping us out. We have a tax now that you can't have vacant homes or vacant condos without having to pay quite a hefty tax. And I think it's part of over 1,000 empty units into the market. It's still behind, mind you.
Yes, that's an interesting question about rent-to-own because understanding that rent protects people place reason. I think it's suggesting a moving in the direction of rent to somebody with rent control. You can't raise the rent very much. And that's it. Until this person's dead, you're stuck with them as a tenant. Now, of course, investors hate that because they'd like to get to market rent sooner. You could do vacancy decontrol. And, it's just a bit of a trade-off between do you want to protect renters very much, but then nobody wants to be their landlord, and that's just a delicate dance.
The guy from Starlight, the guy that sold to Starlight. Starlight was the company that bought the apartment buildings in Toronto for $1.7 billion. And there was a great interview on Bloomberg with this guy about why they bought the apartments, or why they sold the apartments to Starlight. They initially I don't understand all the finances of it, but they initially were thinking of having an IPO, what's that stand for? Tell me again. Initial public offering, and they ended up not getting too many bites on it. And then they put what they call the financials, which is, if you look at a real estate company, you look at apartment buildings for rent, and you do a few clicks, you can find the financials. And in the financials, they have what the existing rents are, and then you have another column right beside every unit that says what the market rents could be. And so when this company published the financials, they started getting all these offers that were way more than they had thought the places were worth, because they had long-term tenants, and the existing rents were about 30% below what the market rent were. So the investors said, wow, if we get rid of these tenants, we can make a huge amount of money. And this is why we desperately need vacancy control. Vacancy control is when you have a law like we used to have back in the 70s that says if a landlord gets rid of a tenant, he can't raise the rent as much as he wants, or she. And we passed a motion at City Hall calling for vacancy control in SRO hotels. We just passed that in December. It was unanimous, even from the right, middle, and left, and green. And in my opinion, we need it for everybody, but we got it, the city at least wants it for SROs. But if we had vacancy control, it could do a lot to stop all of the stuff that they were talking about that's going on all around the world with these real estate investment trusts. Well, also need strong legislation at all levels of government to stop speculation in housing and to take housing back from the speculators. We haven't had a national housing program since Paul Martin got rid of it, and we're letting go of public land like Little Mountain that had it was a beautifully designed complex, affordable housing, designed for mothers with kids. They could see the kids. It was safe, and the province sold it to the Kaixing's people, and then it got flipped, I believe, and the city gave a demolition permit, and it still hasn't been built up. That's how it isn't built up. It'll be mostly condos, exactly. But if that's what speculation does, and that's what these guys are doing with our public assets. And it used to be that we were a country that stood for public housing, public education, public health care, and now we're allowing those public assets to be basically given away for very little money internationally. And I think that the certain fight is for them to control their own land for their own people, and people are standing up and talking about climate change. We're fighting the same people. We're fighting the same speculators who are taking these public assets, whether the public land belonging to the certain people or the right for us to have a healthy living without climate change destroying us. But the destruction is not happening because of individual people polluting, it's because of these same big firms. And I think we have to think about what kind of society we want and what kind of government representation do we want and what kind of parties do we need that will stand up for the common good again.
And I'll just add, because I think part of what's important about your question is something that we've been hearing a lot of, which is an overheated housing market where housing is treated as a commodity and not as a public good, as a place to live. We're trying to find as many creative solutions as possible to get people into homes they can afford. And this came up when we were on the Burnaby Housing Task Force, trying to come up with solutions to address housing unaffordability. Rent-to-own was one of the recommendations out of that task force, but the reality is the vast majority of people can't afford to own a home, aren't going to ever be able to afford a home, or don't want to own a home. And so when we look at things like that, we need to recognize that what's the crisis, the root cause of this crisis is that home prices are way overinflated because they're being speculated on, because investors are parking their money in an asset rather than people buying a home in which they can live in. And so what you get then are people who are paying way more in terms of mortgages to banks than they can afford because they're desperate to get in on a market before it's completely unreachable for them, and the people who can't even make it to renting a home. And so we're trying to find these creative solutions, but what we need to tackle is this root cause of investors driving up the price of housing in this market so that it's completely unreachable for any of us working class people to be able to afford, and we end up putting 40, 50, 60, 70, 90% of our income into housing that then just gets siphoned off into other investments or into mortgage payments, which is basically paying rent to the bank, and you're never going to see that money back. And you're going to be constantly scraping for more and more, and you're not going to find it.
Yeah, so I think the empty homes is a real issue, and I think the empty homes tax was a great response to it. Then the speculation tax at the provincial level was really terrific. I think one area in which the film was a little, I don't want to say intellectually lazy, is blaming BlackRock and, deep-pocketed speculators for all the problems instead of looking a little bit inward at ourselves. There's not enough houses and too many people. I mean, all these people say, well, if I'm out on the rental market, I'm out of luck because, I'm not going to be able to find a place. There's too many people and not enough roofs. And, that's really largely our own problem. I mean, we dedicate 80% of our land, to single-family homes, which are totally, $50,000 a year. It's a fantasy that somebody who makes $50,000 a year will ever again be able to afford a detached house with a yard. It's just, so it's easy to say, oh, those deep-pocketed guys, they have market power. I mean, close your eyes and think of the most evil person in the world. It's Donald Trump, right? His dad owned vast swaths of, middle-class housing, which was actually pretty good in New York. He did not great things in terms of the tenant mix and demographics. Trump's a terrible person, and he was a private, small-time landlord, and there's a lot of people like him who are plenty greedy. I don't think the problem is BlackRock. And, speculation doesn't hit rents. Speculation hits prices, but not rents. We just don't have enough homes, and I think we do have to do a little introspection about compromising our own private amenity for more homes.
I think the film was pretty clear that there are enough homes for people. The fact that there are empty homes, empty condo units, there's huge squatments of people who are living in these empty homes because they're empty and the owners aren't there, they're far away. And I think it's important to recognize that the fact that these investors are buying up these buildings and using them for speculation is the very reason we don't actually have homes to live in, and it's the part of what we've been talking about, and particularly around the regulations and what the province as well as cities can do is in using their powers around zoning and permitting to make sure that the type of housing that's being built, that's being bought in our cities can actually house the people who live in them rather than being used as safety deposit boxes in the sky, which is what they currently are. And so we've been putting pressure on municipalities in the province to make sure that when they're looking at, what is our community going to look like, who can come in here and build in our community, it's actually meant for the people who live in it and is not displacing the working class people who are trying to live in and get by in their cities.
Yeah, and I'm thinking of it, these real estate investment trusts, the REITs like Blackstone, are a second level of the commodification of what should be a human right. The first level is the developers and the private speculators that are demolishing and building these new expensive buildings. And then the second level is these rights that come in and try and extract still another level of profit out of it. And like Ellen said, we really need to shift so that we're more like Vienna, so that we have a really high percent of housing as non-market housing. Non-market housing is actually way cheaper to build. You can get the land cheaper, you can get cheaper financing, you don't have to have 15 to 30% profit. You can actually build non-market housing for a way lower income of resident than you can build market housing. So that's the shift that we've got to make, I think, so that we're completely taking housing out of the speculative market.
So, and I just want to add, just in particular around how investors drive up rents is because when people who rent out their homes see that the people next to them are renting them out for market rate and that they could make an additional $1,000 or $2,000 on their rented suite, they have an incentive at that point to get that tenant out of there and increase their rents to make more. So I think it's important that we recognize that the investor companies that are buying up homes for people to not even live in aren't doing anything productive to earn the wealth that they're extracting from those buildings in order to pocket in another investment or another asset.
Well, now you have a point, which is taxes, and that's another point of introspection, which is, we're very happy to slap property taxes on the bad foreign people, which, and the foreign property tax and the speculation tax have taken that out of the market. The problem is it was the top of the market, not the rest of the market, which is still a huge problem. And, we have a tax system here, we always have, which infers and instructs people, buy real estate, but don't work for a living, and don't buy groceries or whatever else is subject to sales taxes. We make our money on sales taxes and income taxes, so people who live and work here pay a lot of tax, but our property tax rates are tiny relative to other places. So you're right. It's not rocket science that buying real estate in Vancouver is going to appreciate over time and be a good investment. So charge a high tax. It's not going to go away.
I think that we can't lay it all on the foot of cities. We had a good strategy. We had the national government was there with money, the provincial government was there with money, and the city was there with land. The feds pulled out, Quebec and BC stayed in for a little while,
and then they couldn't afford to stay, and they pulled out, and then the city's left with addressing the crisis of homeless people on the streets.
So we had 30,000 units of social housing built in Canada in 1972. 30,000. And that wasn't a communist government or a socialist government. It was probably liberal and conservative.
Yeah.
And it's 30,000 units, and now what is it? How many units of social housing do we get in a year? I don't know. I'm sure it's less than 5.
And if you look at the federal budget, in Canada, we're spending $19.8 billion a year on the defense budget. Who the hell are we defending ourselves from? We could have national programs if we wanted them. We could demand in elections that the federal government come back to the table with our taxpayers' dollars and readdress it to social programs like housing. The provinces would come back to the table, and then the cities would have to sort out the speculation and defining the land and the development necessary to create the social housing that we would need. In the United States, 57% of their budget goes to the defense budget. 57%. We have to look at that money, which is our money. It's our taxpayers' money. And there should be more of it if we tax the wealthy properly. We used to have 7 stages of taxation. We only have 3. If we tax the wealthy, who are accumulating wealth at a frightening amount, very small percentage of the population controls the overwhelming majority of the wealth, which comes from our work and our children's work. We have to address these structural evilness in the system if we're going to deal with this.
We do have to move on. We have a question here at the top. I saw, I think, second row, maybe? Okay, gotcha. Oh, no, that one is not on. It doesn't look like, but the one behind you is on. And then, yes, I see you, and who will be next?
Okay. The topic that Push covers is a very passionate one of mine. Just a minute. I am a new immigrant in the territory of Portland, and as a foreign-trained architect from my home country, Ghana, I realize that the similar issues that I see here with the developers in the building industry, which is greed, shared greed. Back at home, I have sat with developers and policymakers, and in the discussion of brief, in the discussion of what they aspire to do with the land, you realize that the thought process behind it is greed. You know, where sometimes I have to take off the cap of an architect and be like, hey, the building you are trying to put up and the rents or the price you are trying to put on it, which is sometimes 500% more than the production cost of the building, people can't pay. So if you're looking at making money in 2 days' time, I'm sorry, you can't. So my question now is, how can we move forward to a sustainable, affordable housing without keeping the sovereignty of the land in this area? And secondly, how can we as a people, and mostly this gentrification affects brown and black communities nationwide, and different variations of class. How can we as a people push policymakers? Because I've sat around policymakers, because architects, this is where I'm also complicit of it, because, these developers come to us for designs, the skyscrapers and all these things. So sometimes we have to advise them whether a project is viable or not. So how can we as a people push policymakers and political members, whether MLA or MPs, to push the right policies that will protect the citizens of cities and urban areas? Thank you.
I think I can answer both of those from the perspective of our Affordable BC campaign. So our campaign is two-pronged in terms of how to address particularly profiteering off of land that we all need to live and work on. And really, I think it's important that we root that in particularly the land acknowledgement at the beginning of this, and understanding that first and foremost this land was stolen, and that people were dispossessed of their land and the livelihoods in order to extract the wealth that is currently being extracted from what is called BC right now. And so we really do need to keep that in the forefront of our minds when we think about how we got to where we are now. And part of what all solutions are calling for is where possible for provincial, municipal, and federal governments to carve out private ownership of land and move it into public ownership, to use cooperatives, community land trusts, and other forms of public housing in order to make sure that it's not treated as a profit-making venture, but actually as a public good as it should be. And another piece of how people can actually push to get regulations that protect the people living in these communities really comes from building power and organizing within your community. And I think there's folks here from the Vancouver Tenants Union, there's someone here from Equine BC, and they've really shown the ability to raise the profile of the impact the current situation is having, but not only that, in order to demand from politicians the regulations we need, but in addition to that, using our economic power as renters. One of the things we saw in the video was the Parkdale rent strike, and I really wish they paid more attention to that, because that was a real victory for working class people to use their economic power as renters to force a company to meet their demands, and we need to be doing more of that.
Yeah. I just wanted to say, in terms of giving the land back, I think it's really important that we work on that. If we had a good progressive tax, income tax, and or property tax, we could use some of the revenue of that to buy back land. We can give back land like Sinak is being given back to the Squamish to redevelop. We could allocate part of certain taxes, like the property transfer tax, to Indigenous nations, because it's, after all, it's their land. And in terms of how to influence policymakers, so I'm ostensibly a policymaker, although I don't have a majority, and there's all kinds of people here in the audience who have been trying to influence me in a good way by fighting for tenant rights, fighting for vacancy control. VCGEU is supporting one of their members who is a tenant, who is with other tenants, is trying to get his rights from a landlord, which I think is amazing. I've never seen a union support a tenant so strongly. You've got to keep pushing, you've got to keep organizing. I think the most important thing for renters in a building, if there's an issue, is to talk to each other. To not sign anything until you know what your rights are, and to get an advocate like the Vancouver Tenants Union or TRAC or somebody. There's people here sitting in this room who have so much experience fighting eviction after eviction after eviction and eventually getting their rights. So, yeah, it's really important to just keep organizing and keep pushing and keep demanding. Burnaby, because of tenant organizing in Burnaby, tenants in three-story apartment buildings were being evicted into nowhere. Tenants organized. They got rid of the mayor who was allowing that. They got a new mayor, and now they have a policy that evicted tenants have to be allowed to come back to a new unit at virtually the same rent, and they have that replacement housing at virtually the same rent. And so that shows that tenant organizing can work, even especially in our own region.
It's really important to join with the
tenants union who are doing great work here in the city, but it's also to recognize that there'll be a city election in about 2 years, and a provincial election, and there could be a federal election, we don't know. But we have to get active in campaigns like the Right to the City, because I agree with you that what's happening with homelessness is racialized, it's gendered, it impacts the Indigenous communities, women, the LGBTQ, youth, minority, immigrants, refugees differently. And we have to be organized to come forward with strategy and come forward with candidates like Jean who will stand up in the city council, at the provincial level, and the federal level. So it means actually getting involved, because right now the NPA, which is the right party in the city of Vancouver, has on its board a member of the alt-right. He's a member of Rebel, which is the media arm of Trump's campaign, and one of their guys ran Scheer's campaign. There's a serious movement of the far right that is backing some of these most atrocious things that are happening. And if we don't organize and join parties or create the party with the values that will address the needs of the majority of the people, then these people will completely retake the city back. And they'll take the provincial government back. So we have to think about how can we get engaged for the right to the city for all.
We had a question. There was a gentleman here who held the mic and it wasn't working, so we'll come back to you. And then we have a question at the back who will follow after.
Thank you. One of the commentary I found really reminds me of addressing the issue about these large financial speculative companies. Even before Blackstone came into existence, we had a runaway market, and I'm not really good at that, so I bought a house, and she wasn't open, and I was going to find out. And so, and I do agree with the point that just the urbanization of the world is creating more need for population at cities. So guess what other structural things have we done in the system? Economists are really interested in looking about the market rules in the states, and here in Canada, capital gain tax. Let's set up this notion of housing is part of the fundamentals that are causing housing to be a disconnect with the ability to
So, both for rents and prices, the demand and desire for immigrants is strong. This is a great place to live. And, you used to have California and the northeast of the U.S. is full of, good climate, well-governed cities, but that might be out the window, given Trump looks to be 55%, right? So the demand for a place like Vancouver is just going to very likely continue to grow. And so there's that. There's just not that many great places to live, and a lot of people who need to leave where they live now. But the other one that's really important is low interest rates in terms of buying. If you think about a city like Vancouver, right, it's a tiny bit of math, but the value of a house is basically, or apartment is today's rent divided by how much as a percent I need to get this year. And how much do I need to get this year? It's the opportunity cost of my capital, like not exactly a treasury yield, minus how much it's going to grow next year, my capital gains. Well, if you think about it, the rate of return minus capital gains is incredibly close to zero and maybe even negative, which means the value of a given rental stream is extremely high in a place like Vancouver. And it's very large, especially if you have a single-family home that needs to be turned into apartments someday soon. It's very large relative to one person's, 30 years of earnings. When interest rates are 12% and there isn't that much growth, 30 years of income is enough to pay off a house, but not in today's world. So, between the growing rents, because there's not enough homes for people, and really low interest rates, which don't seem to go anywhere, just plain vanilla 30-year payoff mortgage, I just don't see that working very well in Vancouver for a lot of people. So I think rental is very important.
I could add a couple of structural things about the worst kind of housing, the people for whom the housing crisis is the worst, which is people who are homeless. I'm almost 77, and I can remember when we hardly had any homelessness in Vancouver. And that's because in those days, welfare rates were high enough to pay rent and eat. And in 1996, I remember me and 200 other people fasted for a week to protest this, but the feds brought in a law that abolished the Canada Assistance Plan, which was a big, thick law that where the feds paid provinces 50% of their welfare costs if they met certain standards, like one of which was that welfare had to be adequate to meet basic needs. Well, when that was gone in 1996, welfare rates started plummeting. And so now we just had the provincial budget with no increase to welfare. So there's no chance that anyone who goes on welfare will be able to rent a place unless they get into social housing, which has something like a 10,000 person waiting list in BC. And so the other one is social housing. 1972, 30,000 units of social housing were built. Now it's way, way, way lower, like probably less than 5. And now the definition of social housing has changed so that in Vancouver, at least, the definition is housing that's owned by a government or a nonprofit, where 30% of it rents at Hills, which is a BC housing term that means it's affordable by people earning about 30 to 80,000. So if you're under 30,000, there's nothing guaranteed. Whereas in the old days, social housing meant housing that you could afford. If you were poor, you weren't excluded from it. So those two, we've basically had 40 years of austerity that's pushed down welfare, that's pushed down disability, that's pushed down the amount of money that's spent on social housing. And you want to see what the results of that is, just go to the downtown east side, because every year it gets worse. And I'm feeling a bit of hope now with all the young folks and with people saying, I'm not as optimistic about capitalism as Leilani, but I think people are seeing the results of austerity, seeing that it doesn't hurt when we tax the rich, we can still survive, we can use their money for a lot of really good things, and hopefully we can turn the corner and start shifting back those 40 years that have been a disaster.
So we have
yeah.
Thank you.
But there's a tendency for social housing providers to get tenants that are at the upper end of hills because it makes the financing of the building work out better, unfortunately.
We have a question at the top, and then we have a question up at the very top.
I work as an activist, housing activist for the downtown east side. This film never went anywhere near how undignified, unjustified, how we feel in the downtown east side. They tell us to act like adults, but they treat us like kids. They are so old and like jail cells. I had a really serious operation last April. I had a kidney operation. I wasn't allowed to have visitors because my kids don't have AT. My partner here was evicted from the hotel I was staying in, so he wasn't allowed to come and see me. For 7 days I stayed in my room and had to try and make it around on my own. The question I have right now, the two buildings, the two infamous buildings in Hastings, the Agent and the Broomwell, were supposed to be expropriated. What is our next step in trying to deal with that? Because there could be 3,000 people off the street. If everybody on the downtown east side, every 5 steps you take, there's someone sleeping there. All weather's been horrible. They have extreme weather shelters. I go to them and they feel so they don't take him away. I walked all over my partner trying to find shelter for him. He's been on the street now for 2 years. I still work hard as an activist. We both do, and we're both trying our best to get people off the street because I have a family donor, I've got my child on a donor, and it's humiliating sometimes. You know, the way we're treated as soon as we leave Hastings and Maine, and we go maybe to Broadway or something, we get thrown around in stores. We're not feeling sad, we're poor. That's about it.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks so much, Erica, for bringing that up. You're right, it's not fair. The Balmoral and the Regent are mired in court right now, but the plan is to have social housing there at some point in the future, but I think whatever happens there is going to take years, if not decades, unfortunately. I do have a motion coming to City Council next week that calls for declaring homelessness an emergency and calls on all three levels of government to make a plan to end 80% of to reduce homelessness by 80% of counted homeless people within 3 years. I wanted to put 100, but I co-submitted it with somebody else who wanted 50, so anyway, so that might help if we had a concrete plan. The idea is to try and push that motion up through other levels of government to the Union of BC Municipalities and the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. So Ottawa just passed a similar motion, so trying to get cities all over the country to pass this up so we really do get some action on homelessness at federal and provincial levels. The provincial budget just had 200 units of modular housing for the whole province, which is completely inadequate. 2 years ago they had 2,000, which if we did 2,000 a year, we could actually almost do what the resolution is calling for. Not quite, we need maybe 2,500 a year, but it's completely doable, right? If we just allocated the money for it and did it, and in the end it'd be cheaper than leaving the people on the streets. That's what all the studies say. Plus, everyone could have a nice dignified housing.
But I have to say, we're looking at millions of people around the world who are refugees. Millions. And the military-industrial complex, SSC leveling, the Canadian government is pouring money into Saudi Arabia for arms. We're talking about a lot of money and millions of people homeless, living in tents. People who are getting killed in Germany, people getting killed because it's pitting certain groups of people against other groups of people. So we really have to look at this as a global issue. It's not the Chinese coming in, it's not the problems of the Koreans. In their own countries, there's people dispossessed, whether it's China, Korea, or Canada. And we have to seriously think about what kind of a world we want to live in. Climate change problems are not going to go away because you and I recycle our goods. We really have to look at what are the corporate polluters who are the same people who are doing the speculation. They're all doing it for profit, and we have to look at this in a serious way and figure out how to move that agenda forward at every level of government.
Yeah, let me just thank you so much for your remarks. And it's going to get worse, unfortunately, because you look at San Francisco, which is probably where we're heading, and it's such a beautiful, wonderful place to visit. But now you go and you mentioned homeless every 5 feet, and I just don't see how it won't get worse. And one thing they say is a program for the poor is a poor program because people don't want to spend money on people who they aren't. So I think one thing, again, I would just reiterate, where do we get the money in the city of Vancouver? And the answer is sell the zoning of the single-family neighborhoods. It's crazy what gets built, just luxury mansions, which, it's ridiculous, right? If you tear down a single-family house, you get a fancy new house, which is a ridiculous, obscene waste of space. Yes, developers are greedy, but exploit that greed. Tell them, if you want to take a bunch of single-family homes and turn them into an apartment building, you can, but you have to pay us a lot of money. And the amount of money is gigantic, potentially. If you sold the zoning of the west side of Vancouver, you would have tens, hundreds of billions of dollars. I mean, it's a gigantic amount of money that's wasted. Every day the government says no affordable housing south of 16th Avenue in the city, which is an outrage. And there's so much money to be made from selling zoning. I mean, Burnaby did it. What was crazy is Corrigan didn't have the wherewithal politically to think, well, geez, I'll take some of this money and make these tenants better off. I mean, if there's that much money to be made turning down a 3-story building and turning it into 50 stories, there's so much money you could easily make the incumbent tenants better off. Give them lots of cash while they're away and then units in the new 50-story building. So there's so much money to be made. And the fact that we deny access to most of our land, it's socialism for the rich, and it's really bad.
Thank you for that. Unfortunately, we have room for only one more question, and it's at the balcony there.
Just very quick, as well as we can talk about the pension funds that was briefly shown in the movie, and hundreds of billions of dollars that unions actually own, and then they end up investing it in all the wrong industries. So was wondering, especially BCGEU, but also Jean and Ellen, if you could comment on how we can do that, how we can get unions to divest from these predatory industries.
Excellent question. So one of the things that we've been working on is for a lot of folks who don't know how pension funds are governed, it's by a board which is not largely controlled by actual members of that union. It's usually a split between employer, union, and I can't remember the third party. If it's a public pension fund, it's sometimes government. But so first and foremost, workers don't actually control that money. And so that's a problem, and that's something that we've been trying to work on in terms of democratizing pension funds, because workers do care if they're privatizing public projects in another country, or they're evicting people from their homes somewhere else in the world. We wouldn't want to see that happen to us. We don't want to see that happen to other people. The other thing that we particularly have been working on as a union and trying to work with other unions, not only in BC, but on an international level, is around a project called the Committee on Workers' Capital, which takes the dues that members pay to their unions and invests them in more or less ethical funds. And so we've successfully divested from fossil fuel a while ago, way back before it started to tank, and we've been pushing not only pension funds but other unions to start investing in other portfolios that don't put money in things like damaging fossil fuel projects or the displacement of people or the privatization of public infrastructure and goods, because that's not going to do any of us any good in the long run. And ultimately, workers need to be the ones who control their capital and the capital, but their workplaces as well, because ultimately, we're the ones who are making that money. We should be the ones deciding what to do with it.
Yeah, BCG has been really playing a leadership role in financial issues. It sounds kind of strange, but they've been really helping the Vancouver Council, for example, just voted to try and divest from fossil fuels. And that was because of a lot of help from the BCGEU. But I have a friend who works in trying to get institutions to divest from fossil fuels, and she says, Jean, guess where they're investing in after they've divested? They're investing in these rights, in all this housing. So we have to go back to what Carrie was saying and try to get more democratic control over those pension funds.
There's an old slogan, don't want, organize. Really, we need people to join the tenants union. We need people to get in the local municipal parties and influence them and get some other progressive people to support Jean next time round. We need to be expecting a provincial election at any time. We need to have some good people who stand up strong. And the issues of climate change, speculation, etc., are not separate issues.
The alt-right is well organized, it's well funded, and it is systematically trying to take over various levels of government. And if we want to move on these issues, we have to join organizations, work together, and stand up for the kind of communities we really want. And we do have to think on a global level. We have to open the doors and support refugees and get things moving so that our societies are really humane, and what the woman who was speaking earlier, the tragedy of Erica's life and her husband's life and her kid's life is not continued to be repeated tenfold.
Thank you.